Now let's get started. Now we just crossed 9:01 here, so I think it's a good time to start. And also we also crossed the audience number 100.
Oh, okay.
So, and more people are coming in, but we'll start now. Um, uh, Today we have a really distinguished speaker, Dr. Alon Halevi. He's one of the visionaries, having uh, gone through all different jobs, starting from professor and entrepreneur, and then and he also developed Google Big Table and Fusion Tables, and then he moved to Meta, and the most recently he was with Amazon. Now he's back to Google, and uh, and he's writing a book on well-being and AI. And you is that the book title? And we're gonna have a preview of his book, before he, the book is in the actual bookstore. Thank you. It's all yours, Alon.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Great to be here. I would have preferred to be there in person. And thank
Mhm.
you for distracting me for a whole hour from the elections that are going on here. I hope I hope they work out well.
Mhm.
Um, hold it. Let's see if this. Okay, this is working. Let me put this in. Can you see my slides?
Right. Yes.
Okay, good. So as you said, the book is in progress, and the title is in progress. So it might be very different when it comes out, but it'll be the same guy. Okay.
Hmm.
So here's the question we're asking in the book. Um, Today we have many applications that address our well-being. Right? We have a watch that will tell you how well you sleep and record your workouts. You have this ring that will tell you how well I slept. There's apps for meditation, for diet. You name it. Many aspects of our well-being are being addressed by apps. Okay. The problem is that they don't actually all work together. None of them have a full view of our well-being. And now, if you think about it, we're getting into an age where we're going to have even more apps, and there's going to be more data. So the data that is collected collectively by all these apps is going to be much bigger. And of course, with the new wave of AI innovations, namely language models and their ability to have conversations with you, there's a lot of discussion of we're going to have these hyper personal assistants. But if we just go at it one by one, every app in isolation, we're not going to really get any. What the claim is, we're not going to get um, very far. So the one of the arguments is, even though we have all these apps, our well-being hasn't really improved. Okay. Now, if you look at these beautiful pictures on the slide, they what they're showing is that for since the beginning of history, right, well-being and technology have been closely interlinked, right? I mean, if it starts from the wheel or the light, the light, electricity, trains, transportation, medicine, Wi-Fi, everything, all of these technological innovations have affected and improved our well-being to a certain extent. So this is just we're following the arc of history. So now, hold it, I need to be here. So I'm going to try to do something that I haven't ever done, which is hold it. I am going to so well-being is a very complicated topic, and what I want to hear, and I don't know if we can do this on Zoom. I want to hear from you through a mediator, maybe. What does well-being mean to you? When you hear the word well-being, what is it? What comes to mind? What do you need in order to feel that your well-being is better? So let's try to take a few answers from the audience, and you think we can?
Yeah, I guess the audience can put their ideas on the chat. Please feel free.
I'm seeing
This
happiness.
is there's a Professor Jiwook Cha is a very bold to say happiness.
Okay.
He's a psychologist.
Is happiness and well-being different?
Yeah, I think it's closely related.
Okay. And what are the elements of well-being? What are the most important things that come to mind in order to increase one's well-being? There's no wrong answer here, by the way.
Uh-huh. I guess there's one actually on the chat window, two actually, yeah, and one, yeah.
Financial security, financial and good.
Mhm.
Okay. Consistent sleep, yeah. Your environment. Okay.
Mhm.
See, I'm not seeing all freedom of speech. Okay. Love oneself and others around you. I like that.
Mhm.
One of the reasons not being confined by data that describes me. I love these answers, by the way. If somebody has the patient can take the chat stream and put in a email later, I would love that. One of the reasons I'm asking this question is that there's an argument. It's not an argument. It's well known. Is that notions of well-being actually are very or slightly different across cultures, and so so I'm very curious to hear what people in Korea think what comes to mind when they think of well-being. In a few weeks, I'm going to be giving a version of this talk to octogenarians, people who are 80 and above, and I'm looking forward to hearing what their notion is. They probably know, right? Because they've been around. So let the feel free to continue posting answers to this throughout the talk. I'd love to hear your perspective. So one thing that came clear from your answers is that it's really complicated, right? You have some of the basics, right? You have your physical security, your psychological security. Nobody's shooting at you. Nobody's trying to harm you physically. Then you have your body. Your body needs to be able to support you in what you want to do. So that's where the sleep comes in. That's where exercise and good diet come in, right? And then it gets more complicated as you go up the tree. Okay, so then comes the well-being of the mind. Okay, and the well-being of the mind it's many things, but one of them is the ability to focus on what you're doing at the moment and not be distracted by either future plans or other things that are going on. So being able to be present. And so, for example, meditation is one way to practice that. There are also things like being spiritual or practicing gratitude that just helps your mind put itself in a better place. And then the highest level of the tree. Okay, I'm not saying this is not a pyramid. It's not like it's not Maslow's pyramid of needs. Even Maslow's pyramid of needs was not a pyramid, that's a different issue. Is meaning. Okay, what is the meaning of your life? Why are you getting up in the morning? Are you doing interesting work? Are you volunteering and contributing to your community? Are you learning? Are you somehow growing in ways? So these are different aspects of well-being, and by nature you can look at this. This is a beautiful illustration because we paid for it, and you can see that it's very hard to think of clearly one app that would do all of these, right? So that's why we're in where we are today. So so let me give you an outline of what I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to talk about a proposal for what's called a well-being operating system. Okay, and this is again from, as Sang said, it's from the book, whose title is changing every day here right now. Now, when I say operating system, take that with a grain of salt, okay? Because it's not. I'm actually moving away from that metaphor, but you'll see a little bit more when I talk about it. So the idea of the operating system is to try to think about what are the common components that if you're building an application for well-being, how can you build on each other? What do you need to think about when you do that? Okay. And then I'll go into some of the data science challenges that need to be addressed. So we're in order to realize this vision. Okay. So I should say it's not like today we can build what I'm envisioning to build in this talk. This is more of a call to action to solve the technical problems that are still out there. I don't think it's rocket science either. So I think if we put our attention to it and do it with a focus and some organizing principles, we should be able to do this. I'm going to be expressing opinions. They do not represent my current employer or any previous employer. I really do not want to get fired as a result of giving this talk. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so here's where the analogy to operating system works. If I imagine, I can't see any of you, but I'm imagining that that you're too young to remember the days where we wrote programs directly on the hardware of the computer. Okay, I'm also too young to remember that. So it finished a few years before I got interested in computing. But the problem when you were writing programs against the hardware was you put your program on the hardware and that's it. You control the hardware. No other program could work there. And you know if there's a different hardware, you need to rewrite the program. And sometimes you're doing it in a way that exploits the weaknesses or the strengths of the hardware. And so, but programs can't work on the same computing platform, right? So then computer scientists invented this wonderful thing called an operating system. An operating system gives you a bunch of interfaces to a file system, to a processor, to a network, stuff like that. And now when you write a program, you're writing against these abstractions. Okay, and there's a question: are we supposed to see any? You're muted.
She's asking whether she can see the presentation. Show the presentation. Yeah.
Or are we share? Or can you not see it now?
No. Well, we are only seeing you.
Oh, damn! Hold it. Hang on. Share screen. I thought I was sharing screen. No.
Yeah, we share. You show the slide and then somehow it disappeared. Yeah.
Just 1 second. We'll fix this. This.
Okay, now it's coming. Thank you.
Thank you for. I mean, I don't want. My hands are not that interesting. Okay.
It's interesting.
Okay, everybody can see. Everybody can see it. Okay.
Hmm.
So my point is that the apps that we're building today for well-being seem like each one of them is touching a different piece of our hardware. And in this case, our hardware is our body or our mind or what have you. And we need an abstraction that is sort of inspired by operating systems in order to build better apps for well-being. Okay, so we're going to call this thing. So by the way, this is where I'm going to stop the analogy to operating systems, because I know there are people here who know more about operating systems than I do, and this analogy only goes this far. We're going to call this thing OSWell, because OS is operating system, well-being, and we'll use this going forward. Okay, so so here are the components of a well-being operating system. Think of these things as things that you need to consider, or components that you need to consider when you build an application for well-being. Okay, let me say one other thing. This operating system can be used in two different scenarios. One is that we continue building many applications for well-being, okay, but each one of them is benefiting from the operating system and is doing a better job. Or what I personally would like, and there's people that talk about this, is I want one agent that will just be my my AI partner. So this agent will just look out for me. It'll understand my well-being. It'll understand my aspirations for life. It'll understand where I am right now and what I'm trying to achieve. And it'll just be there, just like a business partner or a life partner or or whatever kind of partner you want. Okay. In fact, the AI partner might even be the title of the book. Okay. So if you see that, buy 50 copies. Okay. So the first component of this operating system is a database. Okay, very big surprise, right? I'm a database guy, so we're going to have a database as a component. But this is not a traditional database. So this database is recording all the experiences that you've had in your life, and you'll see examples of this again. So this might be my workouts, my trips, my journal, the stuff that I wrote in my journal and describe my experiences. It can be my online purchases. It can be what I listen to, what I look at on Netflix, anything that shows what I've actually done in life and what I thought about it. Okay, this database will also look into the future. What do I plan to do in my life? What are my aspirations? Where do I want to be in 5 years from now? What do I like to do and want to do more of or less of? Okay, so this database is the repository of your past and your desires for the future. Okay, and I'll talk. This will be building. This will be a big part of the talk. The second component of the operating system is your attention. Okay, now your attention is your life. Let's think about that for a second. Okay, you can be doing whatever you're doing. What you pay attention to is actually where your experience is coming from. So you can be sitting on the top of a beautiful mountain, looking at an amazing view, but thinking about the problems that you have at work. Okay, you're having a terrible experience. Okay, or you can be walking through, a busy city and I don't know, a lot of crowds, but thinking about, something beautiful that is going to happen later in the day, and so your experience is better. So your attention is really affecting your well-being. There's a favorite story that I like to tell here that I got from a book from Daniel Goleman. He many years ago, when Jimmy Carter, we're allowed to talk about presidents today, right? Because we're voting for a president. When Jimmy Carter was running for president, this would have been 1975. Okay, he happened to go to a campaign rally and meet Jimmy Carter, and he was amazed because he had a conversation with Jimmy Carter, and Jimmy Carter was completely focused on him. Okay, and this guy couldn't believe, like, this guy is running for president. He probably needs to worry about 10,000 other things, but yet here he is, and I'm having a conversation with him, and he seems completely unaware of anything else. He's just focusing on our conversation. Okay, and the question is, why was Jimmy Carter so amazing? Okay, now Jimmy Carter is an amazing guy. That's besides the point. But the thing that enabled Jimmy Carter to be so focused on the conversation with this person was that Jimmy Carter had 100 other people that when it was time to move away from this conversation, they would come and take him away and take him to the next most important thing that he needs to do. So Jimmy Carter didn't have to think about all the stuff that he needs to do today, because he had a staff that figured it all out, prioritized his attention and his time, and he just had to follow them, and he was able to actually be present. So my question is, and this is the vision for a really good AI partner, is why can't we all enjoy the benefits of Jimmy Carter? Okay, Jimmy Carter is also 100 years old. Okay, so if we can all live to 100, that would be pretty good. So can we have an AI that knows all the stuff that we need to do and the priorities and how important they are and blah blah blah? Okay, and at any given point in time will tell us, here's the most important thing you need to do right now, and you can focus on this because I'm taking care of everything else. Now, I'll say this multiple times as I talk. You can always ignore your AI. Okay, so you're not subjecting yourself to the authority of the AI. The AI is there to give you advice, and just like we ignore advice all the time, you can ignore the advice of the AI, and it'll go to the side and will say to itself that it's recalculating. Okay, just like a GPS. Okay. So the second component of this operating system is a set of mechanisms that will help you have your attention focused on the most important things at any given point. Okay. The third component of the operating system is connection. Okay, and here the idea is that our relationships, the different kinds of relationships that we have in life, are obviously a huge component in how well we feel. These can be our closest relationships with our family, our work relationships, our neighbor relationships, our far-flung professional relationships. It could also be relationships with our communities, right? What a religious community or a sports community or some sort of hobby community. So all these relationships are really shape our experience in life. And the point of this component is that we have many of these relationships, and we try to do the best we can with them. But it would be nice to make sure that we are paying attention to the most important relationships. When we need something, that we know which relationship can help us achieve that, either get advice or feel good or just go out for a hike or what have you, and that we are actually contributing to these relationships. So maybe there are people around you that you have a relationship with, and you want to make sure that you are contributing to that relationship, making the other person feel good and valued and helped when they need to. So the point of this component is to help you. Again, it's meant to help you with these relationships, but make sure that nothing slips between the cracks. Okay, you've got people, they're happy, and they're making you happy. So these are the components of the operating system. Okay. Now, by the way, I'm happy to take questions at any time. So, how are we going to interact with this thing? Okay, and this is just like one way of thinking about it. So if you have an AI partner, you would like to be able to just have conversations with it throughout the day. Okay, it's going to also collect data. It's going to see how much I ran this morning. It's going to see how much I slept. It'll tell me to have more caffeine, less caffeine, whatever I need to do in order to make it through, to not just make it through the day, to thrive during the day, right? Now, when I talk to this AI partner, it will this is already getting a little bit to the technical challenges, it will take whatever I say and it'll sort of do the right thing with it. Okay, so maybe I will say something like, I really enjoyed having lunch with Steve yesterday. Okay, so it's going to say, maybe we should schedule another lunch with Steve at some point in the future, and it'll ask me how often I want to meet Steve. Okay, or it might say, I'll tell it that I really did not enjoy this thing that I ordered at this restaurant, and next time I come to the restaurant, it'll be there for me and it'll remind me that not to order this particular dish. So think of the AI partner as sort of like a very lively journal. So you're telling it stuff throughout the day, but it's making things, it's putting stuff on the calendar, it's putting reminders, it's putting stuff on a to-do list, it's putting stuff on a list of books or movies you want to see. So it's taking these things and putting them into action. Okay, that's the way we envision working with this partner. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the first component of this operating system, which is your experiences. Okay, so here we're very lucky. We have a lot of our data, a lot of what we do in our lives is already being recorded in some way. Okay, so you have you're taking photos everywhere you go, your watch is telling you stuff, your Spotify knows what you're listening to and what you like. Whatever map app you're using is maybe it's tracking your location, maybe it remembers where you're asked to go. So there's just so much about your life that is already being recorded. Not only that, if you're going to buy augmented reality glasses, then these things are just going to see everything you do throughout the day. So your entire life is recorded. You should be able to build a database of everything you've done. That's the vision here. Okay. Now, when you do that, you should be able to then start asking questions about your life, right? When did I go to El Salvador, or what city did I go to after I visited Tokyo, or when was the last time I had somebody work and clean up my roof? I don't remember, but it was probably somewhere recorded in my digital breadcrumbs. So this personal timeline, again, it's not a new idea, is a database of your experiences, and you can collect this using a variety of techniques today. Now, the good news is that the companies that are storing these data sets for you are forced by, thanks to a bunch of Europeans, to make it available to you. So GDPR and the DMA are forcing them to create a way for you to go and download your data, and then you can do whatever you want with it. It's still difficult today because the companies aren't making it terribly easy. But if you read carefully the DMA, the Data Markets Act, you will see that now these companies need to support an API. So now somebody can write a program, and you can start going and fusing all this data. Now again, there's a lot more data coming. Either it's smart glasses or smart clothing, or someday we'll have brain-computer interfaces, so we don't even have to the movement. We're going to be recording much more subtle information. There's a beautiful book a few years ago called Total Recall that was written by the late Gordon Bell, who built a system called My Life Bits at Microsoft about 25 years ago. Then he was like taking all his documents and doing OCR and stuff like that. Today you can do these things much more. There's hardly any paper documents. But he talks very nicely in the book with Jim Gemmell about all the things that you could do if you actually had a perfect record of your life. Of course, if you have a perfect record of your life, you can also start seeing patterns, right? You can also start seeing the fact that whenever there's avocado on a menu, I order something with avocado, okay? Or that I tend to do my food shopping on Saturdays, or that after I don't get much work done on election day, stuff like that. Okay. So actually 2 years ago, I told him I was at Meta, And I told my manager at Meta that please don't disturb me for the next 3 months because I'm so passionate about building the system. I'm just going to build it and don't bother me. So he was very kind to me, and he let me do that. So we have a so I built this, and of course my coding skills are not what they used to be. They were never that great, but together with a bunch of other people, we actually built this GitHub repository where you can download a system that will take you will give it your personal data. It will fuse it into a database, into your personal timeline, and will give you a bunch of visualizations. You can even ask it queries about your life. It's, it needs more work, but you can actually take it and start playing with it, and it's kind of fun. So I built this for my data. Actually, so one of the main sources of data that I took here was my photos, because the photos, they tell you where you were, they tell you when, and they have a lot of interesting things about your life. There's a question I would like to ask. Okay, if you can repeat the question, I will answer it.
I guess he's asking to share the slide.
Did it go away again?
He's asking whether you can get a copy of the slide. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I'll make a copy of the slide. Yeah,
Yeah.
no problem.
Yeah.
No problem. Okay, so I just told you that that you can collect all of your information into one database, right? And you're probably like, this guy is smoking something really, really good, and I want some of that. Okay, so let me give you a few, just in case you're scared, let me give you a few caveats. Okay, so obviously when I talk about building a database of your life, I mean that it should be stored securely, and it should be available only to you by default. I'm not a security expert, but I believe that from a technical point of view, this is possible. In fact, we store very private sources of information today using cloud technology, so that's doable. It's when you talk about privacy, there's the distinction between the actual technical privacy and the feeling of privacy that people have, that people just don't trust the system. But obviously, this thing should have privacy in mind, front and center. The other thing is, so by default, this data will be private, okay? And it shouldn't be the case that when you start creating this, you have to go through the privacy questionnaire and start making decisions what to share with who, whatever, okay? Sharing should be on the fly, okay? So if you're asking me about, do I have recommendations what to do in Singapore, okay, then I will say yes. Share my experiences in Singapore with Sang for the next 10 minutes. Enable him to get a list of restaurants or cafes that he can go and visit in Singapore. So now the system should be smart enough to go into my timeline, figure out when I was in Singapore, figure out which restaurants I went to and liked, and take that and share it, and that's it. Okay. Another example is maybe I go into a restaurant, right? And I look at this very complicated, suppose I'm in Seoul, okay? I don't know, I don't understand Korean. I love Korean food, but I do not remember the names of the foods that I've liked in the past. But I've probably taken photos of them, and so there's probably a lot of information in my timeline that expresses my preferences about Korean food. So now I can share this, and I can say, look, share my Korean food profile with this waiter or waitress for the next 10 minutes, so they can give me recommendations for what on their menu I might like, okay? And they might be entrepreneurial and say, you know, if you let us save your data for 30 days, we will give you a 15% discount because we have a bunch of data scientists that are trying to figure out what people like, and we'd love your data. And I'm like, yeah, 15% discount, take my food data. Okay, so now I am able, so it's not just a matter of sharing, it's also a matter that I can start getting benefits for my data on a, you know, every now and then. Okay, so that's the kind of thought that we have when we think about privacy here. I am running out of time here, so let's move it on. Let's move along. So privacy is just one example, a strong example of what I would call a human value that we want to adhere to when we build any AI system, in particular a system like an AI partner. Now, a few years ago, when I was at Meta, about 20 of us, not from Meta, but from everywhere, from a bunch of places in industry and academia, people from AI and HCI and policy and law and psychology and medicine and a bunch of professions. We got together to think about what are the human values that are important to incorporate into AI systems. At the time, we were thinking about recommendation systems like Facebook or Spotify or Amazon, that when you ask a question or don't ask a question, you get a list of recommendations. And so our goal was not to tell you which human values are good or how to implement it. Our goal was to say, here is the list of human values that are important to think about when you're building a system. Here is what these values mean. So we're, at least when we have a value, we know what the definition of this means. And here's sort of the state of the art of what people are doing with respect to this value. So if you want more details about this, it's in ACM TORS, Transactions on Recommendation Systems. It took a long, it's a very long paper, so it's very hard to get a 70-page paper accepted by anybody. Because but it goes very fast. It's like it's a very readable paper. Anyway, it's out there, and it's I think it's still relevant in the world of Gen AI and certainly in the world of AI partners. I want to point out that when I'm talking about your life log, right? Everything that you got from your devices and clothing and glasses, right? It's all objective data. It's like facts, right? You can record the fact that you went for a run, or that you saw a particular movie, or you bought something on Amazon. These are all objective facts. But what really adds color to our lives is our subjective experiences. Okay, so yeah, maybe we will post something on social media saying, "Oh, this was a great dish, and look how beautiful it is." Even though usually when we take the photo, we don't know how good it's going to be yet. But the point is that there are a lot of much more complicated subjective experiences that we have, that if we can record those in some way, then we can really get a better view of what our experiences were. Now, the traditional way of doing this is journaling, right? People either journal by, there are a bunch of apps for journaling. You can also just use paper and pencil, but very, very few people journal, even though it's proven to, research has shown that if you journal, that increases your well-being. But the reason that people don't journal is it's work, and they don't necessarily see the value of that work immediately. I think that with LLMs, we can actually change that. So imagine an LLM can actually start asking you questions at specific times in the day, but the questions that it can ask you will be very tailored to your experience. So if you just had lunch with somebody and you're driving to your next appointment, the AI partner can come in the car and say, well, what do you think about this? What do you want to remember from this lunch meeting? And now it's like, okay, there's value in doing that, because later when you meet this person again, you can say, can you remind me what we discussed last time? Was there something that are there any follow-up actions that I should do? Is there anything that I want to put on my to-do list? Stuff like that. So the point is that the LLMs can ask much more tailored experiential questions and actually create a journal that is fun to create and useful, because you'll also have the AI be able to answer questions about that. Now, remembering everything perfectly in life is not always a good idea. Okay, our brain has evolved to protect us from accurate memories, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. If you want a really fun story relating to this, check out Ted Chiang's "The Truth of Fact, the Truth of Feeling." It's a short story in one of his collections. Okay, now I'll talk pretty briefly about some of the technical challenges that arise here. Okay, so I told you that this timeline is a database, but it's not a traditional database with a schema. Okay, because you can't imagine a schema that represents all the kinds of things that you might experience or do in life. Okay, so when we design this, we have only one piece of structure, two pieces of structure in this database. So the objects in this database are things we call episodes. Episodes have a start time and an end time, and they might have a location. Maybe they'll have a start location and an end location if it involves movement. And the content of the episode is whatever you want it to be. It can be an image, it can be a story, a text, it can be a video, it could be an entry from your journal, anything. It can be the run, so it actually can have more structure if your watch contributes the time and speed of your run. But we do not enforce any additional schema on this on these episodes. And so once you have time, if you have the start time and the end time, you can already put it on a timeline and you can start doing interesting things with it. Okay, so that's what this database looks like from a database, from a formal database point of view. Okay, one of the important things about this database is that it fuses data from multiple sources, right? So if I go to Seoul on a trip, right, I'm probably taking a lot of photos, right, and maybe I'm checking, I'm paying for a hotel, or I'm paying for, I don't know, I'm buying stuff, I'm paying for this. So there is digital breadcrumbs that I'm leaving, the photos, the credit card transactions, the stuff like that. So you can figure out that I'm actually in Seoul on a trip, right? But how do you know when I finished? Okay, when I come back to San Francisco after the flight, I'm not standing there at the gate and taking a photo of the gate saying, "Hey, I'm back." No, I'm just trying to get the heck out of the airport and go home. You will probably find out that the next day I went to my local vegetable store and I bought tomatoes. Okay, he's back at home. Okay, or he went for a run in his neighborhood. He's back home. So that's why it's important to look at different sources of information to figure out what is really going on in your life. Okay, so I already pointed to one of the challenges here, which is I take a lot of photos and they're telling you very low level information, right? I'm here, I'm taking a photo of this dish or this building or what have you, right? But none of this says I'm on a 5-day trip to Seoul, right? So in some sense, what you need to do is the first challenge is what we call deriving meaningful episodes, is looking at the very low level signal that you get and trying to infer what is the story here, what is the episode that is worthwhile remembering for the future. Not every detail of every day is important, but maybe you want to remember the places you visited, the rest, where you ate, where you had coffee, stuff like that. Now think ahead to the days where we're going to have glasses that will record every detail of our day, right? I hate to break this to you, but most of our day is pretty boring, right? You don't want to save every every image frame of everything that you did from the day, from the moment you woke up until you went to sleep. How do you figure out what is important in your day to save? And some of these things, for example, if I come home and I put my keys somewhere, I may want to save that because later I'm going to be looking for my keys and I don't know where I put them. But a few days later, where I put my keys on Monday doesn't really matter. I really like this quote, so I'm going to pause for a second. So one of the benefits of a timeline, of a personal timeline, is that now you have perspective on your life. Okay. Now, so David Brooks in his most recent book says, coming up with your personal life story is actually really important to leading a meaningful life. Okay, so if you try to put everything that you do in life in some sort of narrative, then you can start seeing connections. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. Maybe you'll decide to change course or to do different things or whatever. But when you put things in perspective and you tell a story about them, there's much more meaning to all the details. And there's a beautiful quote from Isaac Dinesen, the author of Out of Africa, that says that all sorrows can be borne. In other words, you can bear them if you put them into a story or tell a story about them. So if you look at anything that's happening in the world, right, and obviously there's a lot bad going on in the world, a lot good too. But if you look at them if you tell a story about the world, then you can see you can bear the sorrows in a more in a more principled way. This is this is something that is worthwhile pondering later on. Okay, so now we have the question of, okay, you created this great database of all your life, right? How are you going to answer queries about this, right? Because you don't have a schema, and you don't have, you're pretty happy just letting everything into this database. How are you going to do this? So this is where a lot is a big challenge for database people today, and you can think of two different approaches for doing this. Okay, the first approach would be what's called the LLM fanboy. That's not my expression. This is this came to me from an LLM fanboy who said, well, just chill. You're a database person, but everything you did in databases is kind of irrelevant. Just relax and just put all the data into an LLM and ask whatever you want, and the LLM will answer. Maybe it won't get everything perfect, but just wait till GPT 5, 6, 7, and life will be good. Okay. That's a possible approach. The second approach is what I would call the database query processing enthusiast. Okay, which describes more people in this room. And the point is that LLMs do a lot of amazing things, but the one thing they don't do very well, and they don't look like they're on the track to do that, is to do set-based reasoning or processing at scale in a reliable and predictable way. So what we database people do is, we know how to manipulate tables. We know how to get answers that involve combining tables and filtering and aggregating and doing all these relational operators, and we can do it at any scale you want, and we'll always give you the right answer, no matter how big your database is. Okay, this is the stuff that we do really, really well. Okay, and LLMs, and if you're going to start looking at queries about a long life, you're going to need to be able to do that. Okay, so we need to somehow combine what LLMs do well with set-based processing. So for example, if you take the LLM fanboy approach, then the point here is that if you give the LLM a small subset of relevant facts and ask it a question, it'll give you the answer. Most of the time, it'll actually give you the answer. So here's a bunch of stuff, like take it from This can be from a journal, okay? And so mom came to Seattle on this date. We went to the zoo, we went clam fishing, the stock market fell, she left on April 23rd. So these are things that you might get from my journal, and they're a little, and then you can ask, okay, where did I take mom when she was in Seattle? If you give this to an LLM, it'll ignore the stock market and it'll tell you the stuff that you did with mom. That's pretty good, right? I mean, if you think about this from a database perspective, this is amazing, because you had no other way of doing this with databases until now. You had to like take each one of these sentences and code them in a schema and necessarily it's just like you wouldn't do it, right? So this is a huge step forward. But the challenge here is, because it's PowerPoint, I had to give the system just the right set of facts in order to be able to make the inference that it needed. And even though context windows are growing and stuff like that, data is growing faster than context windows. So how do you give the LLM the right context? Let me. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here, but we actually created a benchmark for personal timelines, and it appears in ACL's last year. And the idea was to get the community to actually develop techniques for answering queries over personal timelines. I also want to emphasize that personal timelines are obviously a great application, but a subset of that is what is medical records. So if you actually look at in the healthcare industry, every patient has a very long, possibly long medical record, and when a doctor looks at this and needs to give advice very quickly, imagine being able to query the medical record for like, okay, how did this person react after being given this particular medication, which may have been at some point in the past scribbled or expressed otherwise. So these personal timelines in particular, they can look like medical records. This is my point about doing set-based operations. Okay, so if you, sorry, I have not been to Seoul as many times as I've been to Tokyo. I apologize for that profusely, and I'm still young, so we can fix that. But if you look, this is real data. So if you look at how many times did I go to Japan? Well, now you need to go to my personal timeline, and you realize that I went there for the first time in 1991, and then I went again in 2010, and went 3 times this year. And now what you need to do is, so you need to go to all these parts of my timeline, figure out that I went to Japan, and then you have to take the union of this and aggregate to come up with the answer of, I don't know, 17 visits to Japan. This is what we do as in terms of set-based operators, and I'm arguing that LLMs, not only are they not doing this well today, but they're not. I love being wrong, by the way. So if in a few years from now I'm totally wrong about this, I don't care, as long as you give me good question answering over my my personal timelines. Okay, so a few years ago, again at Meta, we came up with this idea of neural databases, which was an attempt to address this issue of we can actually get information out of any kind of modality of data, text, images, video, audio, whatever you want. Okay, and so you can ask all kinds of questions, and if you can get the data out of these, the raw data, and then turn it into something that can be manipulated by a database, then you can start answering very sophisticated questions. Okay, so for example, if my question here is how many people's spouses are doctors? Okay, so you see here on the top left, Sam and Amanda married last June, right after she finished medical school. So the LLM can infer from that Sam is married to a doctor. Okay, this is not possible by any database technique, but it's what you're doing is you're getting to the LLM to do what it's doing best, which is extracting a fact, a database fact from from text, and the other examples as well. But then you do the analysis on each of these 3 entries, and then you do the union and the aggregation using a traditional set-based processing. So we did this, but I think there's a better piece of work that came out this year called Lotus. It's a paper from Stanford by Liana Patel and her colleagues that I think took a better approach to this problem. So what they do is they essentially extended SQL with a few operators that enable you to ask a question of an LLM. So think of an application where you have a customer support database, okay? And you have a column that says the customer complaint. It's a bunch of text. And then you have the answer that the agent gave the customer, which is also a bunch of text, okay? So now you can ask a query such as, give me all the rows in which the answer from the agent didn't address the problem in the complaint, okay? So you're essentially doing neural databases, but you're actually telling the system exactly where to apply the LLMs. Okay, so now the point of Lotus, and there are a bunch of systems that are like that, is that now you can start imagining completely amazing kinds of queries that we were never able to ask in business or whatever settings before, that incorporate unstructured data much more in a much more principled fashion than what we were able to do today. So this is a very exciting space that is evolving very quickly. Let me touch on one other challenge, which is, suppose you're talking to an agent, your AI partner, and again, I'm going to be citing other people's work, okay, which is what you do when you come to